The Blackfeet Nation, also known as the Niitsitapi or Blackfoot Confederacy, once thrived across the sweeping northern plains of North America, covering what is now Montana, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. Their origins trace back through a vast and layered history that spans thousands of years. Scholars believe the Blackfeet may have journeyed to the Great Plains from the northwest as far back as 10,000 years ago. Originally linked to a broader group of Algonquin-speaking peoples, the Blackfeet gradually forged a unique language and cultural identity of their own. Deeply rooted in the rugged beauty of the northern plains and Rocky Mountains, their traditions reflected a nomadic existence shaped by nature's rhythms and the spiritual forces they revered. Their connection to the land wasn't just physical, it was sacred, threaded through every ritual and daily act. Today, we journey back into this ancient world, revealing the lesser-known saga of the Blackfeet, a nation whose enduring spirit carried them through hardship, with pride in their customs and unshakable belief in their ways. Their story is one of resilience, depth, and unyielding cultural richness. Like many native peoples of the plains, the Blackfeet followed the great buffalo herds, adapting their movements to the rhythms of the animal they relied upon most. Buffalo were far more than food. They were life itself. Skilled hunters devised ingenious methods like driving herds over cliffs in organized buffalo jumps or funneling them into cleverly constructed pounds. Every part of the animal was used. Meat sustained their bodies, hides became homes and garments, and bones were shaped into tools. The buffalo was sacred, central to their survival and their soul. The Blackfeet displayed remarkable ingenuity by transforming buffalo bones and sinew into essential tools for survival. Their homes, teepees crafted from stretched buffalo hides, were masterfully designed for quick setup and breakdown, perfectly suited to their mobile lifestyle as they followed the vast buffalo migrations across the plains. Their deep-rooted spirituality touched every part of their lives, driven by a powerful reverence for the natural world. To the Blackfeet, every element of nature, be it animal, plant, stone, or star, carried a living spirit. This belief in a spiritually infused world formed the foundation of their sacred traditions. Nothing in nature was viewed as lifeless. Everything was part of a larger spiritual web, interconnected and alive. Their spiritual understanding was not separate from the land, it was born of it. They saw the world not only as a home, but as a sacred space deserving of respect, balance, and harmony. Central to their belief system were the sun and moon, revered not just as celestial bodies, but as divine forces. The sun embodied warmth, life, and creation, while the moon served as a guardian of the night, protector of dreams and mysteries unseen. These celestial beings were honored through sacred ceremonies, with the sun dance standing as the most profound. Each summer, the Blackfeet gathered in spiritual unity, performing sacred rituals of dance, song, fasting, and personal sacrifice to commune with the sun. This ceremony wasn't just a prayer for blessings, it was a renewal of their bond with the spirit world and with one another. Through the sun dance, they strengthened their community and reaffirmed their connection to all living things. Their animistic worldview placed powerful meaning in the animals and landscapes around them, with the buffalo, provider of food, shelter, and spirit, holding a place of unmatched reverence in their hearts and in their stories. To the Blackfeet, the buffalo were not just animals, they were sacred guardians, essential to both physical survival and spiritual guidance. Every part of the buffalo served a purpose, and in honoring the animal, the Blackfeet honored the sacred balance of life itself. Yet beyond their spiritual strength, the Blackfeet were also a highly organized society. Their community was divided into several tribes and bands, including the Siksika, Kainai, Blood, and Piikani, Pagan, each with its own leaders, customs, and territory. Within this social structure, extended families and clans were the core of daily life, and decisions were often reached through communal discussion, with wisdom shared and consensus valued. The heart of Blackfeet cultural preservation lay in ritual and storytelling. Elders, revered for their experience and insight, served as living libraries, passing down legends, teachings, and ancestral knowledge from generation to generation. Like many Great Plains peoples, the Blackfeet engaged in intertribal conflicts, driven by disputes over territory, honor, and resources. Long-standing rivalries with groups like the Crow, the Shoshone, and even their relatives, the Assiniboine, fueled a cycle of competition and revenge. These skirmishes were not mere violence. They were deeply tied to the cultural traditions of warrior honor and survival. Raiding was a common practice across the plains, and the Blackfeet were known for their daring strikes against rival camps, often to recover stolen horses or avenge fallen kin. Among the most feared of these raiders was White Quiver, a towering Blackfeet warrior famed for his lightning-fast horse raids and fearless courage. As powerful as they were in their prime, the winds of change began to stir in the late 1500s. That was when the Blackfeet first encountered Europeans, a meeting that seemed promising at first, but would eventually mark the beginning of the end of their freedom. French fur traders were the first to arrive, soon followed by British and American explorers, as westward expansion intensified. These early exchanges were marked by trade and cautious curiosity. European goods, guns, metal tools, cloth, were exchanged for prized buffalo hides and furs, initiating a new era. Armed with firearms and mounted on horses, the Blackfeet rapidly grew into a dominant force. Their territory stretched from what is now Edmonton in Alberta, south through the Rockies in Montana, and east to the Black Hills of South Dakota. As their power grew, so did their reach, driving out weaker tribes and commanding the northern plains with pride and determination. Yet even this golden era was only the calm before the storm of colonization. At the peak of their strength during the early 19th century, the Blackfeet controlled an enormous expanse of land, from the icy edges of northern Saskatchewan to the far southern sources of the Missouri River. They weren't just a powerful tribe, they were one of the most feared and organized military powers on the northwestern plains. For over 25 years following 1806, they fiercely resisted the presence of French, British, and American fur traders, whom they viewed not as partners, but as trespassers. With calculated determination, they shut off access to the rich beaver streams along the Missouri's upper branches, keeping outsiders at bay. Even as they guarded their territory from foreign encroachment, the Blackfeet remained locked in conflict with neighboring tribes, seizing horses and captives through carefully executed raids. After their initial contact with European traders, their next significant foreign encounter came through the advancing Americans. As the U.S. pushed westward during its expansionist era, frontiersmen and explorers began to interact with the Blackfeet and other native nations of the plains. Much like their European predecessors, these Americans sought to tap into the lucrative fur trade and exploit the wealth of the land. At first, the relationship was mutually beneficial, with both sides engaged in commerce and cautious diplomacy. But as more settlers and traders arrived, tensions began to simmer. The Blackfeet, once welcoming, grew wary of the strangers flooding their land, disrupting not just the balance of trade, but the sanctity of their homeland. Misunderstandings, resource competition, and grievances over unfair trade practices soon began to erode the fragile peace. Despite this rising friction, both nations recognized the value of their trading ties. Eventually, a treaty was proposed to ease the growing hostilities and formalize boundaries. But for the Blackfeet, the signing of that treaty would mark the beginning of a long, painful decline. On September 17, 1851, they signed their first treaty with the United States, the Treaty of Fort Laramie. Held at Fort Laramie in what is now Wyoming, the agreement aimed to establish recognized tribal boundaries, secure the rights of indigenous peoples to safe passage, and encourage peaceful coexistence between native nations and white settlers. Though the treaty's language promised respect and protection, what followed was far from peace. While ambitious on paper, proved fragile in practice, altered, ignored, and eventually undermined by future waves of settlers and shifting U.S. policy. As the decades passed, tensions between the Blackfeet Nation and the United States continued to rise, driven by disputes over land, resources, and diverging agendas. With the steady encroachment of American settlers into tribal territory, the promises made in treaties were routinely broken. What had once been formal agreements meant to secure peace were gradually disregarded, leading to growing hostilities and a widening rift between the Blackfeet and the federal government. For over 30 years following the first treaty, the Blackfeet refused to abandon their traditional hunting lifestyle in favor of agriculture, the path the U.S. government was aggressively pushing upon the tribes of the plains. In a cruel and calculated strategy, government officials and settlers began slaughtering the buffalo en masse, aiming to force indigenous communities into farming by cutting off their primary food source. As the buffalo neared extinction in the early 1880s, the consequences were devastating. Nearly 1/4 of the pagan branch of the Blackfeet died from starvation. With survival at stake, the Blackfeet eventually turned to farming and ranching. But even before this shift, in 1865, the U.S. government had already set its sights on expanding westward by constructing the Mullen Road, a military supply route meant to connect Fort Benton in Montana to Fort Walla Walla in the Washington Territory. To move forward with the project, U.S. officials negotiated yet another treaty with the Blackfeet, known as the Treaty of 1865. This new agreement laid out further territorial boundaries and required land cessions from the Blackfeet. Although it temporarily reduced tensions, it failed to create lasting peace. The underlying mistrust and unequal treatment persisted, and relations between the Blackfeet and the United States remained tense and volatile. That fragile relationship reached a horrifying low point in January 1870, when Colonel Eugene Baker led a U.S. cavalry detachment in a brutal raid on a Blackfeet winter encampment near the Marias River in Montana. Dozens of men, women, and children were killed in what became known as the Marias Massacre. The attack was carried out amidst rising fears about treaty violations and retaliatory raids by Blackfeet warriors, but it indiscriminately targeted innocent families, turning unresolved tensions into lasting grief and historical trauma. The Blackfeet endured profound loss of land through a series of federal treaties. As their ancestral territories were carved away, so too were the foundations of their traditional lifestyle. Hunting grounds vanished, gathering routes disappeared, and the natural rhythms of their culture were thrown into disarray. One pivotal moment came in 1896, when the Blackfeet tribe consented to surrender a significant portion of their lands under the terms of the Treaty of the Blackfeet Tribe of Indians. These lands were handed over largely to make way for farming, ranching, and white settlement. The treaty set new reservation boundaries and introduced land allotment, assigning parcels to individual Blackfeet members. This policy was part of a broader push to assimilate indigenous people into white society through agriculture and individual land ownership. In return for the land, the U.S. government promised the Blackfeet financial compensation. This included a one-time payment and ongoing annuities. The treaty also pledged the creation of schools and the provision of farmland and vocational training, aimed at transitioning the tribe into a new way of life. However, the agreement carved out two major areas of their former homeland for government use: Lewis and Clark National Forest, which includes the Badger Two Medicine area, and Glacier National Park. Though the Badger Two Medicine region was left outside the Blackfeet's reservation, it remained spiritually essential. This 200-square-mile stretch of the Rocky Mountain front, rich in sacred meaning and cultural history, was still protected by reserved rights for access, hunting, and fishing. Then, in the spring of 1903, the first traces of oil were discovered near the Swift Current Valley, just beyond the reservation boundary in Glacier National Park. Samuel D. Sums, in search of copper, noticed oil seeping up as he cleared debris from a mining site. That accidental discovery sparked a wave of interest in the area's hidden resources. But by the 1980s, trouble followed. The Bureau of Land Management approved drilling leases in the region without consulting the Blackfeet. The tribe resisted, determined to defend their sacred landscape, a place central to ceremonial practices and cultural survival. After years of pressure, the U.S. government finally halted leasing activity in the 1990s. And in 2007, under President Bush, a permanent ban was enacted, protecting the land from future oil development and preserving its spiritual legacy. By November 2016, most of the leaseholders had given up their claims, and the U.S. Department of the Interior officially canceled the 15 drilling leases that Devon Energy Corporation held in the sacred Badger Two Medicine area. Although this was a major victory for the Blackfeet, the reservation continued to face serious economic challenges. Its remote location made job creation difficult. As of May 2016, the Montana local area Unemployment Statistics, LAUS, reported the reservation's unemployment rate at 11.0%. Back in 2001, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, had recorded a devastating 69% unemployment rate among enrolled Blackfeet members. Even among those employed, over a quarter lived below the poverty threshold. One of the tribe's major income sources came from petroleum and natural gas leasing across tribal lands. In 1982, the reservation hosted 643 active oil wells and 47 natural gas wells, creating a vital stream of revenue. Tourism also brought much-needed financial activity to the region. The reservation's economy was further supported by ranching and a modest lumber industry. One unique contributor was the Blackfeet Indian Writing Company's pencil manufacturing facility in Browning, which drew on the local timber supply. Farming remained a crucial livelihood. By 2002, the 354 farms, located partly on reservation land, generated about $9 million in combined income. Most of these farms were family-run, and 198 were owned by Native Americans. Beef cattle dominated the scene, accounting for around 80% of the total farm revenue. Other livestock operations included pigs and poultry, while smaller-scale efforts involved dairy cows, bison, horses, and sheep. Crop farming spanned over 245,000 acres, although only about 13%, roughly 32,000 acres, was irrigated. Blackfeet farmers raised wheat, hay, barley, and small quantities of oats. These crops, though essential, were often secondary to livestock and income. Another important source of income came from firefighting. Many tribal members worked seasonal jobs as wildfire fighters, especially during the dry summer months. In the year 2000 alone, nearly 1,000 Blackfeet served as firefighters, including members of the elite Chief Mountain Hotshots crew. That year, firefighting brought in an estimated $6.1 million. However, this income fluctuated each year depending on how severe the wildfire season was. On April 30th, 2010, the Blackfeet Tribal Business Council, BTBC, approved 3 major initiatives tied to $5.5 million in oil exploration revenue provided by Newfield Production Company. These included a $200 one-time payment to each of the 16,500 enrolled members, startup funds for a new grocery store in Browning, and over $1 million earmarked for purchasing lands within reservation boundaries, helping the tribe reclaim property for collective ownership. Today, the Blackfeet Nation remains deeply committed to preserving its heritage, especially its language, culture, and ancestral lands. The tribe has taken strong steps to protect the Rocky Mountain Front, a region of immense spiritual and historical importance. Population trends in recent years have shown encouraging growth. More Blackfeet are returning to live on or near the reservation. In the early 21st century, the population of those identifying as Blackfeet in the United States and Canada approached 90,000. Their efforts continue to center on cultural renewal, education, and legal advocacy to safeguard what remains of their homeland and identity. Even in times when their spiritual customs were outlawed, such as the ban on the sun dance, the Blackfeet found ways to preserve and pass down their sacred traditions. Their culture endured, their spirit unbroken. Today, the Blackfeet Nation stands as a vibrant and resilient community, proud of its deep roots and remarkable legacy. Each year, they celebrate this strength through North American Indian Days, a major gathering held at the powwow grounds beside the Museum of the Plains Indian in Browning, Montana. This event is more than a celebration. It's a living symbol of cultural survival and pride. And that brings us to the end of this journey through the history of the Blackfeet. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story.